These are the 4 pistons for the 2 original calipers. I gotta reuse these, they're not that bad. First thing we're gonna do is put the packing in. We're gonna use some of the grease that comes. I guess you could use it for that too, but I'm gonna get a little bit more fluid in the master. Sometimes you gotta go back and forth on these. Get them bled up properly. In other words, you're not gonna be able to do one side and then the other. Yeah. Here we go. Ah! Almost. You're not being nice to Daddy. Oh! Alright, I got it, but I had to use these gull wing bars. These are the ones that for gull wings because the tires are so damn tight on them. Alright, folks, we're going to go ahead and take off and take a ride on the Sabre.
Anyway, here we go. Whoa! Coming off the seat. Oh, wow. Holy cow.
I'd like to get some ride video of this thing in here, but without the tires being good. And these are 25-year-old tires that are more dry rotted than I don't know what I've ever seen. Certainly dry rotted than my oldest pair of underwear, that's for damn sure. And, and so we're going to replace the tires. So we're going to do a little tire work on the Nomar. I'll film a little of that, show you my struggle, my daily struggle when it comes to tires. Remember, these guys have been on there 25 years, so it should be fun. And then we're going to work on some brakes, because that's the 2 things I got to do before we ride it around town and get some mileage on this thing. Tires and brakes. I'll go over the brake stuff as we get to it. The tires will become self-explanatory. This is another deal. We'll have to deal with that at a later time. You guys might remember this one, this little Rogue. I think it's a Rogue scooter or something. Rough House. Let's do it. First thing we're going to do is a little mail time. Just arrived before I left, a couple days before I left. I believe it is a new bedroom toy. Just kidding. This is the proper brake kit. You believed me for a second there, I know you did. This is the proper front brake caliper kits for the Sabre. I say proper because I do have calipers on there right now and they do work and they fit, but they are improper. This is a new front master cylinder rebuild kit. It doesn't come with the piston. We're going to reuse the OEM piston. I'll explain why here right now because otherwise it's going to be very confusing. So these work right now. This is all rebuilt with a K&L brand kit. And I have old Magna calipers on here. I had another pair. Obviously I didn't steal them off the Magna, you know, I'm not that desperate. As far as you know, these are a spare set that I bought a while back to just have a spare set. I was going to essentially build a set of nearly loaded calipers, just less the pads, and have them on the shelf if I ever needed them. Well, those things have been laying around forever, and I had the kit for these laying around forever too. New pistons, new seals, just like these guys, except they're not the right size. These are the right size. So the OD of the pistons and the bores on the Sabre calipers is 32 mil. The ones on that are 30. I think they're 30 or 31. And so I'm like, oh, I had that kit sitting forever, and I'm like, they look exactly the same calipers. They are, except for the diameters of the bores. They bolt up the same, left and right's the same. That's why they're on there right now, and they work. That's how I took it for the first test ride. The rear is all set up as far as proper rebuilding. In fact, the rear caliper on the Sabre takes the same rebuild kit as the front calipers on the Magna. Those are the 30 mil diameter pistons and seals and packing and so forth. So those are the same as these on here right now. Not the proper ones. These are not the proper ones. These have to come off and just be set aside. I gotta take the little spring deals out from that sit down inside there that hold the pads against the pins. I cannot find, they're exactly the same on both calipers. I cannot find the ones that came off of these calipers when I initially disassembled them about 2 years ago. These calipers, I'm using the ones that came off those calipers up there, which are the proper calipers, which are all painted up and ready to go. See how confusing this is? And so that's what I need to do. I need to get the proper calipers done. I'm going to take this apart and I'm going to put a proper Well, I think it is a better seal because the bore inside here is just perfect. It really is. But there's something wrong with this. I had a bitch of a time getting this to bleed up. It just would not bleed up. It took me an hour and a half to get this to bleed up, and it's still not very good. So we'll get to that and hopefully be able to put the front brakes on this to bed. But since the rear is all done, we don't have to mess with that except putting new pads in. That's the other thing. I don't have any new pads in here right now. That's the other package over there. So what I did was I took the old pads and just cleaned them up and put them back in. They work, but they don't work very well. We're going to get new pads back there, but not screw with the caliper or the master. That master works fine. That was rebuilt a while ago. And then we're going to screw with this master and these calipers and repad these, and then we should be done with the brakes, and then we can deal with the tires, if any of that makes sense. I'll give you a little suggestion on these old calipers. Besides, of course, your packing grooves and the bores need to be as spotless as you can get. If they're pretty, chowdered up from corrosion, they'll still seal up okay with new packing. I want to show you the difference in the size of the pistons that I just mentioned because I happen to have them laying right here. These are the 4 pistons for the 2 original calipers. I gotta reuse these, they're not that bad. But the kits come with either stainless steel from Brake Crafters, that is, or the OEM, and it's like $6 difference for stainless steel. So I ordered the stainless steel piston and said, screw it. Here's a 32 mil piston that came out, and that's a 30 mil piston from the other calipers. This would essentially be, these would be the ones in the size of the Magna, 30 or 30, I guess that's 30. And I think the length is basically the same, yeah. It's just the diameter. So again, Magna or the rear brake on the Sabre. And then these are the front caliper one that came out of these guys here. They were not that stuck either. They weren't. I was able to get them out without too much difficulty. I cleaned them up on the lathe with some wet or dry, and they probably would have worked just fine. I'm going to keep them in stock for something. Here is the front master cylinder piston. We're going to clean that guy up and put a new rubber seal on it from the other kit and try it again on that master and get that to bleed up easier. I just don't know why. It has to have something to do with that. That K&L kit must be a piece of junk. I got it from Z1 Enterprises. I would have gotten it from Brake Crafters. They just didn't have it in stock when I ordered all the other stuff. So finally they did, and I ordered this as well because I ordered the correct calipers. Caliper piston kits, and yeah. Inside here is the pads, which we don't need right now. So the other thing I wanted to mention on these is when you paint them up, I use PJ1 paint. It's an engine paint. It's fairly resistant to brake fluid because inevitably you get some brake fluid on it while you're working on it. And as long as you let these cure for like a week or so after you paint them, maybe even longer, they'll definitely be reasonably resistant to coming off with brake fluid. These have been sitting for about 8 days now. I did them just before we left. So these should be pretty good, but I still mind my P's and Q's and try to keep the brake, as much brake fluid off them as possible, which is almost impossible to do when you're bleeding them up because it gets all over everything. Of course, you want to have the hole where your banjo goes into as clean as possible. I don't mean the surface so much. I paint that spot all the time and just crank it with a new banjo washer, and they don't leak. The ones you find OEM, they don't have that painted. I don't really care. It's not going to make any difference because it works fine. I wanted to address this particular location where the bleeder is, though. These things get all full of schmoo in the very bottom of them. And what happens with that is when you put a new bleeder nipple in, they ain't gonna seal, and it's gonna get fluid everywhere. Unless you have a vapor blaster or other type of media blaster to get down in that hole and give it a good blow job, well, basically you're out of luck, except for these guys right here, which are just junk crap from Amazon, alleged brass brushes. Little tiny ones that are straight in instead of the side brushes, and you can get inside these little holes like this, and you can clean that out really good. You want to get it inside that. Let's get in the frame, why don't we? You gotta watch the threads on the side of this thing, but you can get down inside that hole where that taper is for the nipple. You get a good clean on that thing. You got to get that polished off good. Otherwise they will not seal right. And then just clean them with a little bit of brake clean or whatever you want to use. Even a brake clean on a Q-tip would be fine if you don't want to worry if you're worried about getting it on, you know, the paint and stuff that you just put on. So I just want to mention that because that'll that'll really kind of ruin your day and screw you up later on. Yeah, so that's a lot better. I'm gonna try to turn the light on and show you. Yeah, see? That's nice in there now. You want to clean, bottom line. Excuse me, I got gas. I'm going to show you how I do my calipers as far as these older vintage style. This is not how I necessarily would do a modern bike like the Concourse. Concourse, I follow the service manual, which says to clean the calipers out with alcohol and then use only brake fluid on the packing when you're replacing the packing, and also brake fluid when you're inserting the pistons back in. But that's just because I follow the service manual for newer bikes. But for these older ones, the Brake Crafters kits, this would apply pretty much across the board. So once you clean everything, of course, everything good and clean, and these are nice and clean, and painted if you want. First thing we're going to do is put the packing in. We're going to use some of the grease that comes. I guess you could use it for that too, but I'm not going there. The grease that comes in the package here is for essentially lubing up the seals, the packing, to get it in. Did I say the grease that comes in the packing? The grease that comes in the package. I swear to God. I don't know why anybody watches these videos. Oh wait, nobody does. Well, that would explain it. Okay, so you have two thicker ones, that's the pressure packing, and two thinner ones, that is the dust packing. Now the way this works is, these are just squared off nice and regular like you know, you would typically see. Just a nice square piece of round rubber packing. The inside of these packing grooves are machined at a slight angle. So there's kind of a little, you can kind of see it right. I'm gonna try to show you, because I don't know if everybody knows this or not. I want to make sure you understand this. So there's a packing, a groove, sleeve, what, packing groove. I'm going back to bed. I swear to God, I'm going back to bed. Maybe I need more coffee. Right in here is your packing groove on this particular one. And you can see there's a little delineation, and you can kind of see it in the metal. Maybe on this one's a little easier. I'm not sure. That's machined a little differently, so it's a little higher in the back than it is in the front. And so the reason why they do that is when you, I'm knocking crap over. When you put the packing in, it angles the back of the packing up a little bit. So the best way to show you that would be to put it on a piston, I guess. Let me take one of these out. And, well, I can use one of the old pistons. These are actually cleaned up pretty good and they're the right size. Let me make sure of that. Of course, we'll just keep dropping shit. Why not? So when you put the packing in, inside the bore here, gets you in a position where this packing, it's angled this way, slightly.
Cupping would be a better word for this, kind of cupped inwards or toward the back side of the piston.
Toward the pressure side. And the reason why they do that is, under pressure with the fluid coming in, what that would tend to do is, that would tend to shove that edge into the piston tighter. So it's angled at an angle, so it'll kind of get it bound up in there. So again, because the backside of this is smaller, this thing is kind of rotated. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's kind of angled like this. This would be the best way to do it. It's kind of angled like that, but it's not angled on the piston, if you get my drift. Just cross-section that top edge there and you get an idea what I mean. That will tend to really jam this thing against the piston and under pressure, and it prevents it from leaking. So that's the whole reason why that feature is in there. If I explained that right, I think I did. So what I do when I put these things in, just a little bit of grease on the packing. Oh, jeez. Fucking He-Man, tighten these damn things. There it goes. Steve, if you're watching this up there at Brake Crafters, you need to stop going to gym. At least stop doing them hand exercises. You know the ones I'm talking about. And we put on the packing. We obviously are going to do the inner ones first because they're deeper. They're deeper in the hole. And we just shove her in. And then just kind of rotate it around. And pop, it'll go in. Now you got to make sure that's not rolled. So you stick your finger in and do like a little pickle tickle. And you get that thing in there and it's nice and flat. And you can kind of feel it, that the back edge is slightly higher than the front edge. I can't really show you that because, well, I can't, but you can feel that. So that's pretty neat. And we'll do the same with the other one. And the same with the dust seals, which are a much looser fit. All they do is help keep shmoo out. These get a little squirrely because they're so thin. And the same thing, a little pickle tickle. Make sure that they are not twisted. You don't need much of this grease, you just need a little bit. That's why they only give you a little bit. Now if you get some inside the bore, that's fine too, just leave it. You can wipe it out if you want, but I just leave a little bit inside there. We're going to install the pistons. And pretty simple. Okay, now this is what I do. You know, it's not necessarily the right way, but this is what I do. I take a little brake fluid, brand new, and I put it in the cap. And I take a little of this brake fluid, and I shmoo a little bit inside there. And I take a little brake fluid, and I shmoo it on the outside. I have found that if you don't do this, just the grease in there, these things will be sticky. My understanding is the grease is only for getting the packing in and keeping these things from kind of sticking as they go in and sticking against the rubber of the packing. But I found that a little bit of brake fluid really helps things out a lot better. And then what you can do is just guide her in and get it nice and even. Get her nice and even. And you want to get past that dust seal first, which usually doesn't take much. And give it a kind of a wobble and a push. And they should go in that easy. They should not go in hard. And that's just it. That's it right there in a nutshell. If they bind up in that one of those two packing get dislodged, the back one's not going to, but the dust seal could. It won't go at all. So if it's just not going at all, you dislodge the dust seal. There's just not enough room for it. You could, unless you're He-Man, you got hands strong as Steve up there at Brake Crafters, you can probably overcome that, and tear up the packing. But in this case, all I do is, push it in. You should be able to push these back in anyway, in my opinion, when they're installed. Even if you were working on, well, that's not what I want. Working on stuff that is not too old, or something that you want to push the pistons out like I have a video on and clean the area around it and then push them back in. You should be able to push these back in by hand. You really should. In my opinion, on motorcycles. Not on F350 dualies, but maybe on motorcycles, no problem. Little wiggle. Must not be straight enough. There it goes. If it's not straight, it's going to hang up on the edge of the aluminium. Or, I'm sorry, aluminium. But it goes right in, and that's how easy it should be. All right, the caliper I'm working on right now that you just saw me work on is the left caliper. This says 30, and I didn't see that when I first was using these calipers, and I didn't look at the number on the other one because they're all full of corrosion. I didn't see it anyway. So it shows 30 and a little arrow toward the piston. So these are 30 mil, and the ones we just did are 32, the appropriate ones for this. What I want to show you was, see, I need that little clip out of there because I can't find the ones that came off of these calipers originally. They're the same damn clip, the spring clip for the pads. But these are obviously recently rebuilt, but you should be able to push these in without really too much trouble at all, even with some hydraulic, pressure from there being fluid in there. Because these have to go in pretty far to get out that clip inside there. So I usually don't have much trouble at all with my hands, at least, pushing these guys in. This one here is a little tight, so that's about as far as it's going to go. I don't know why. But that's enough room to get that out now. These calipers were a little screwy with even the 30s going back in. I think they were distorted I had to run a hone through, I think this one, that's probably why it won't go in all the way. I had to run a hone through it. So these are gonna end up getting some attention by yours truly here again before we put them into stock. Here's a clip. And we'll redo these at a future time. All right, and I also need this. I have it. I have the old one. It's the same one. This little sliding deal, and push it out. If this is a little chowdered up too, but not a real big deal. If they are a little chowdered up, it's not too bad. But I think I have better ones than these. These are the ones that came out of the piston we're working on right now. You see how chowdered up it is. I think I have another pair that's better. But even if they're not, they'd work for you. I mean, it's not really too terribly dramatic because mainly it rides on the rubber inside these guys here, which we're going to install, which is why I need one of those. And I need this. And the pins. All right, this is just reverse order. I'm going to take this guy, which I previously cleaned, and put it in. There's a little hole on the inside where this little tit goes, and then you just push it in, and there's these edges which are angled up keep it in place. But the pistons have to be mostly in to do that. It just won't clear. So you got to get that in first. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put the rubber in this guy where this chowdered up pin goes. I'm just trying to remember where the other ones are, but I don't know right now. So we're going to use them. Like I said, this thing rides on the rubber anyway. I mean, they're not in great shape, but like I said, I can't find them. I don't know what I did with them. It's not like this place is disorganized or anything, you know? All right, where were we? I had to jump around a little bit, do some other stuff, and charge my phone. I think we were putting in these pin deals with the slidey pins. And we were looking at this one, it's all chowdered up. So I found two others that are the right ones, and they're substantially nicer. I'm going to show you how to put these in because they can be a little bit of a prick. So what you do is, in a kit like this, it depends on the caliper, of course, but what it comes with. A kit like this has 3 of these rubber deals, 2 of which have larger holes, and 1 of which is a little differently shaped with a smaller hole. This is for the other one that has a thread on it that goes into the mounting bracket that mounts to your forks. So we're going to be dealing with these 2 guys that are the larger holes, and we have to get this inside here with these 2 rubber guys, which can again be somewhat of a prick. So this is how you do it on these. Your mileage may vary depending on which one you're working on. We're going to get some inside here, so it's in the bore itself, just like that. Keep protected, and we're going to goo up. Let me move you over a little bit. We're going to goo this up pretty good too. I'm going to shmoo up the rubber, particularly around here. This lip that goes into that groove, and of course this end that goes into the pin itself. So what I recommend on these guys is to do it this way. You want to put the inside one in first, right here, pointing toward the inside being where the pads are, and then we're going to take our pin, or slidey pin here, whatever this is, we're going to glue that up too, generously. And then we're going to shove this guy in from this side. And sometimes it gives you a little trouble, but sometimes it don't. So I kind of hold my finger over it, wiggle it, it pops through. Now what you want to do is you want to seat this one onto the groove that it sits in on this piece. You can see that one sticking up, that groove. And then once it goes on, keep going and try to pop it over the groove without taking it out of the groove in the body. In other words, just like that. So it hadn't dislodged itself from the caliper itself, the caliper body, and now we're past that. Because we need some room to put, whoops, wrong one. We need some room to put this guy in and then just go backwards with it. It's pretty simple. You're never going to get them both in at the same time. So you push one in, you know, push it through rather, put one in, push it through. And I just find it's easier from the outside. And then you just reverse the order and just push this one back. Getting goo everywhere as usual. And so that what that looks like is simply this. Come on, let go. Push it through, boom. Now this groove is back into where it goes on the rubber. The rubber goes in there rather. Push it a little bit more, and you can get this one to pop in. And now we're in. That's perfect. So now what I recommend you would do in some case like this, because the next step would be the pads, is to take a fairly clean rag. I emphasize fairly. I'm low on rag, so we're going to use this one just reversed. And take some glass cleaner. I like to use that sprayway stuff. You know, this one, I like this glass cleaner. And just kind of give yourself some on the rag. I try to wipe up the caliper as much as possible. This glass cleaner works very well for it because I don't want to cross-contaminate the pads. It's inevitable you're going to get some on there, but I'm trying to keep the amount down. Just clean up kind of as you go. Get this goo off, because you got to use a liberal amount of this grease, especially on parts like this. I try to get most of it off. Get it off your gloves if you're wearing them. And there we go. So that takes a lot of this off. And again, the sprayway works very well. I use this to douche the calipers as well after I bleed them. And inevitably you get, you know, a certain amount of fluid running down the caliper. I douche the crap out of it with sprayway and then just wipe it down and blow it off with compressed air. And it does a very good job cleaning them up. Now what we're going to do is put the pads in, which is very simple. I got to find where I put the pins because I've taken those off of the other caliper. Oh, probably here. I found them, of course. They're underneath something, as they always are. So we're going to clean those off, even though I have done this already. Put a little grease on them, just a little bit. You don't want a lot on these. Just help them go through those holes, because on these calipers in particular, those holes that these things go through, which are right here, and they go in from this direction. These holes right there, these two, one there, were completely chowdered up with all sorts of corrosion. I had to drive these pins out with a fairly significant amount of force to get these out. They were so stuck in there and corroded. You know, they're essentially corrosion jacked. They're not really rust jacked, because the pins weren't rusty, it was the aluminum. I'm sorry, the aluminium was kind of corroded in there. All right, we got some new pad-a-rooskies. On this particular bike, the pads for the front and the back are the same. I just bought 3 sets. Start with the inside one. And since they go in from this direction, you start a pin. Push down. Come through just so far. See, it's only fart. Fart? Yeah, it's only that fart. It's only that fart. And then do the same with the other one. Just hold the pad in place. You push down because of that spring deal in there. All right. So there's 2 of them. Then we put the final pad in, the outside pad. Now, if you're not replacing pads, rather, and you just take these apart to rebuild them and the pads are fine, my recommendation to you would be, if you're not doing any rotor work, to mark these in and out. And keep them with the caliper they came out of, because they're kind of bedded into that rotor. So just a recommendation. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. Hell, you don't have to do anything. And for the 1.5 people out there that are watching this, maybe it'll help you. All right, almost through. There we go. Now in this particular one, it just has a retainer. I just kind of wipe these down. I'm not really worried about them. And it goes over like this, drops down in like a narrow part to hold that pin in, and with a 6mm bolt, it's got a 10mm head. I'm not even gonna bother tightening it right now. I'm just gonna get it up there. I'm just gonna get it up. I'll use this. Some of my tools are still in the travel tool kit that I make up for trips. I have not unloaded that yet, and I have not even done my wash yet. So, like I said, I'm time slicing. I'm doing different things during the day here as I'm working on this. Trying to get a few household things done. All right, and it doesn't matter what position these are in. So the final thing we're going to do here on the bench is we're going to work on the bleeder. Now, I already showed you the part of the bleeder that I'm really concerned about, which is the bottom in there, which these are all clean already, or at least they're clean enough. But there's a couple of schools of thoughts on these guys. So we'll take the bleeder out and leave the banjo seals and so forth in here if we can. All right, so I have done this both ways. I'd like to go both ways. I sometimes use some sort of a seal on here like Teflon tape. It just helps with bleeding, because when these things are just cracked, you can get air in around the threads, and sometimes it just kind of skews the whole process. Some bikes are just a bitch to bleed. This one just gives me the the impression that it is. It could be those aftermarket hoses that are on there that are probably as old as the bike, or as old as it's been sitting, 20 years or so. I don't know how old. Sometimes I don't, and since I already have experience with this one not bleeding up worth a damn, we're going to go ahead and put some Teflon tape on this. I don't really know what the appropriate thing to put on it is. If anybody knows, let me know. But Honda, for example, has guidance in the service manual for what to put, like on different pipe threadings, like where the oil pressure switch goes. It says to use 3-bond, but I'm not going to use 3-bond on this because these have to move in and out, as you need. The one on the oil pressure sensor goes in, stays there. So we're just going to use some Teflon tape. It's wide, it's too wide, but we'll cut some excess off the width of it, and just put a couple of wraps. Make sure we do not go below the level of the threads. I do this sometimes, again, not all the time. But since I know this one's a bitch, I'm going to do it. Pull it nice and tight. Drop the Teflon tape because it's sticking to my gloves. Okay, now I just take a little, I'll do this off camera. I just take a little razor knife and take the excess away from where the nut part is, the hex part is, and we'll go ahead and put it in. Okay, before we do that one, I want to do one thing I forgot that I would normally do with that one, is I want to kind of run one in that I know is the right one, and I mention that only because there are ones that look exactly the same, but the threads are different. So keep that in mind if you got spare parts laying around. This is also a Brake Crafters kit bleeder nipple, but it's for a different caliper. So make sure you have the right threads before you start putting it in. This just happens to be another one I have, so we'll use that. I don't feel like unwrapping that tape. So now, we cleaned the bottom of that hole out where that bleeder goes, and we're going to kind of test it to make sure it's good. And this also cleans the threads out, kind of chases them a little bit. So you put it in, and if it binds up a little bit, that's okay. Just put it in with a wrench. If it stops, then don't go any further. Of course, you might be cross-threading or the threads are damaged. I don't know what the tap size on this. I don't know anything. This usually works for me pretty well. What you want this thing to do is when it comes down to the bottom, you want this thing to bottom suddenly. There shouldn't be any like a quarter of a turn or an eighth of a turn more. If there is, there's shit in there still. It's compressing the shit. So you want this to bottom exactly like that. See how it's doing it? And also we verified that the threads are clean and good. So now we can take this guy out and put it away. And now we're ready to go and put the actual item in once I clean up the Teflon, as I said before. All right, so I brought the other one up to the same point, and these are going to be ready for install, but I'm not going to do it right away, and I'm going to do it off camera because I want to deal with the master cylinder. I just want to show you a couple things on that might help you out. Then I'll show you a little bleeding, and we'll see if we can get this thing to bleed up better with the master cylinder kit from Brake Crafter versus the one from K&L or from Z1 Enterprises that I had before. All right, this master will be easy to take apart because I just put it back together. Normally you'd have to clean the whole thing down, and I don't have that little baffle thing in there. I don't know where it went, but I do have more of those, so I'll put that in. That's there to cover this little hole up when the cover's open so it doesn't squirt up like a fountain and get all over your instruments or something. We'll go over that more here because I got some stuff covered up. Excuse me, I got gas. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we got to get this rubber guy off that I put on before. And sometimes they're a little bit of a bitch even when they're newer, but this one's going to be easy because I just put it on. So we're going to carefully just pull it up from the bottom. All it's held in with is just kind of wedged in. And we'll kind of get it off this. It's kind of hard to describe because of that thing, because that piston's got a little groove in the end of it, but we can reuse this on some other project because we got a new one in the Brake Crafters kit. So we got the little top hat that'll be useful in the future. We got to get that out of the way. And down inside here is your typical C-clip or circlip, whatever you want to call it, spring clip. And I have the appropriate, I think these are actually Motion Pro, the extended pliers for it. So when you're taking it out, you can do it by hand. Otherwise, I put this in a vise. But just press that in, and, to compress the clip. And then, yeah, you take it right out. And there's the innards of the K&L one. Let's wipe this up. And I know this bore is in excellent shape because I cleaned it and I inspected it and I know it's good. It's got to be that seal. There's got to be something wrong with the quality of this one. Let's separate this. The quality of it or something. I don't know. It just does. It did not want to bleed up worth a damn. So we're just going to put it with stuff that I know works. I'm going to take these master cylinder parts and put it over here in one of the kits. We're not going to need that because we already have one on the bike from when we did the other caliper. So I'll organize this stuff later. It's up on the top of your screen as extra brake parts that I know goes to a Honda or similar one. A lot of these brakes, models to model, brand to brand, are the same size-wise as far as parts go. So just keep them around so you can maybe mix and match them. And yes, I did put a new, what do you call it, a new sight glass in on this one. I have videos on how to do that, so we're not going to show you now. But these are, I did the clutch one and the master cylinder one. Speaking of clutch, I'll go ahead and interject a picture right here, what the inside of the clutch master cylinder looked like. The brake was not nearly as bad. The clutch was absolutely horrible. And I was able to save that with a brake crafters kit, and it bled up perfectly. So that's kind of led me down this road to redo this one with the same type of quality kit. I tell you what, I must be getting weak or something. It's these gloves, I guess. I don't want this brake fluid and shit on my hands though, because I cannot open shit. It's either that or it's just Chinese made plastic bullshit and it doesn't work worth a damn. I don't know. Now your brake crafters kit generally comes with banjo washers. We'll go ahead and reuse, we'll use these and not reuse the ones that were in there. And I think this is a nicer top hat rubber. It's much more firm, it's much more stiff than this crap from K&L in my opinion. So this is just falling apart, and this is not falling apart, but just soft, and this is a lot better. I just think it's more quality of a kit. All right, so unlike the K&L kit, you have to install the piston seal, the packing, on the piston, which I've already cleaned up. It is a little chowdered up on the inside edge there, but it's not a big deal because it seals on the inside, which is nice. You want this really clean. I mean, so clean that a brain surgeon can lay a cigarette on it while he's working on your brain. That's how clean it needs to be. Make sure you got it in the right orientation. This is the outside, this is the inside. So this goes in toward the business end, the pressure side. And we are going to put this seal on like this. Again, it's like the packing and the calipers, that angle. So when pressure is applied to it, it spreads it out. And so it doesn't go this way, it goes this way. And these are not fun to put on. You want to get them on from this side though, because that side is bigger than that side. So we're going to again put it on like that. So the angle is toward there. We're going to use a crap load of schmoo and probably some naughty words, potty mouth, and maybe even a vise to hold it in place. If I can stop grabbing stuff and pulling it where it falls off the bench, that would be nice. Everything is sticking to everything because of this crap. All right, so that's there. We got it in the right orientation. So really it's just manhandling it. You get a prick tool underneath it without tearing it up. All right, so we'll get a little goo on that too. Get it up underneath. You just kind of go around, try to get it started with your tool and just wrap it around. There it goes. And it is if it rotates, that's fine. You can get it back. As long as you don't tear it, you're good. And we've got the right orientation. I'm going to have to move this around to make sure it's seated all the way. Yeah, if it twists it, it's not a big deal because that grease on there will let it come back. All right, I know that was clumsy looking because normally I put this in a vise with soft jaws. And you can use it without gloves. I can usually get these on with my fingers, but I kind of want to show you how you can do it with a tool. As long as you don't poke a hole in it or Pocahontas it or put, really twist it up bad or crack it or something, which on a new one, good quality one like this ain't gonna happen. But it was folded up still under itself on this top edge where I have the pick tool into. So just make sure that it's completely unfolded. You can just work a pick tool underneath it like this and just make sure, but again, it's clumsy, but it does work. Just be careful with it. This is a duller pick tool. That's why I picked it up versus the other one. And this will be fine. But this rubber is really high quality. I think it's OEM stuff that they just buy and they put into their kits. So it's good quality stuff. And I think we'll have a lot better time with this as far as not being so naughty. And installation is pretty simple. Since there's already a good amount of brake fluid in this bore, I'm just going to put a tiny bit of the brake grease on this side that goes up against the piston, just a little bit. And we can shove that in. Remember, it goes like this. So the spring goes to the bottom. And then we can put our piston in. Some of these have a washer that goes on first, then a C-clip. So make sure you watch for that, but this one does not. So it's got enough grease on it, we're good. But you know what? I'm going to put a little bit more brake fluid on it. I just know these things from doing so many of them that brake grease in there can actually cause it to kind of stick a little bit until it gets worked in with actual brake fluid. So I'm just going to add some anyway. And it just helps. In my opinion, it just does. And there we go. Now I'll show you how I do this really quick. For this operation, we are going to use Dad's old bench, the wooden vise. Here's a C-clip. There's a round edge and a sharp edge. It's just a feature of how they're stamped out. You want the sharp edge up because the force is coming this way, because that's a sharp edge inside that groove. Theoretically, if you put the round edge up, you could have potential for this to migrate out. In other words, push against this radius, close itself up, and come out. So whenever you have a C-clip, you want to look at that edge. And that edge goes away from the force to whatever is being restricted by the C-clip. All we do now is put this over top, shove it down, squeeze, hold it, piece of cake. As soon as I can find my Mortske repair screwdriver, give it a shove, make sure it's in the groove. There it goes. There you go. If you have one that's kind of hard to get your finger on top of it and get your C-clip pliers in, just use a screwdriver or something to push down on that. Gives you more clearance. That's how it looks in there. Not a bad idea to add some grease because these things are not perfectly watertight as far as the little top hats go. And over time, you don't want these things to get all freaking fouled up with corrosion and stuff. So we put a little around the edge and the top hat, push it down in. And then we can put a little bit on that. As far as the top edge of the top hat, just like that. Making a mess, but that's okay, we'll wipe it off. Shove this on, get it over groove in the piston. And this part, all I do is use a screwdriver, but carefully. I just push it down in on the sides. All it's holding that in is just pressure. Okay, both calipers are back on, both brake lines. I hate these brake lines. Somebody put these aftermarket ones on. They're too long, too stiff, but I got them on. They'll work for now. This one's way too long, so I need to redo those. I know that. Anyway, this is the master cylinder part where everybody has the most trouble with, me included sometimes, to get everything bled up and get these things where you don't have to spend 3 hours and use a vacuum pump and all this other crap. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bleed the master cylinder itself. You got to do that on these. You got to do that on any of them pretty much. So let me get you set back up in the stand and I'll show you what I mean by that. When I put the calipers on, I tighten the bejesus out of the banjos, but on this I do not. I just put it lightly snugged in with new banjos if possible, or anneal the ones you have. Soften them up and put them back on, you know, with a torch. You've seen that before, I don't need to show you. So this is what we're gonna do. See, I have a plastic all over the tank and a magnet up here, and it behoove you a lot of times to put something up here, but I know it's not gonna squirt that way, or at least it shouldn't. So the first thing we're gonna do is put a 12 mil up there. Now I gotta mention this before we start bleeding the master cylinder here. You definitely want the bleeders closed. These guys have to be essentially closed off. You can bleed a master cylinder without putting the calipers on, but you need, I mean, why would you? You need to close those off with a banjo and a nut or something and 2 washers, because air is going to come back in and not allow it to suck through and bleed this. So that means the bleeders are closed all the way as well. So the bleeders are closed, these are tightened bejesus like I said, and I just snugged that one. So I want to make that clear. The only way this is going to work is to do it that way. And sometimes it don't work either. because these are just a pain in the ass. Since I've already snugged it, we're going to unsnug it, and we're going to close, open, give it a second, open, close. I think I said close open before, but you know what I meant. Open, push, or I should say down. Let's say down and up. That's up. Kind of like when you used to do it for your old man back in the 70s. Down, up. You can see it start coming out right there. Let me move the towel down a little bit. You got to give it a second. The reason why is there's air in there, and the fluid's got to go in and displace the air. And the air's got to come out that tiny little hole. Sometimes it'll come out the bigger hole, the feed-in hole, but depends on where the air is. Since this since this master cylinder is kind of angled up, it's going to want to go to that end. So you just got to give it a second to repopulate, and you should see the fluid level going down. We're going to open. Now that's really bleeding up a hell of a lot better than the original one did. I couldn't even hardly get a squirt out of it. Let me move my fat hand. See all that fluid coming out now? Our fluid level's going down. That's really good. Sometimes you got to go back and forth on these, get them bled up properly. In other words, you're not going to be able to do one side and then the other, especially on these old ones. See, my fluid level's going down, so I know that it's going somewhere. There we go, now we're getting some. All right, so we got some on this side, let's move to the other side. Should come up pretty quick because it's got to be close. Okay, what we got to do now is we've got to get the calipers, even if there's some air in there still, we've got to get the calipers pistons to move out, because fluid has to occupy that space. So if it's going down, the fluid's got to be going somewhere, right? Starting to get a little bit of feel on the handle now. Okay, I topped off fluid and I'm starting to get some good feel here, but it's spongy as you know what, but it's pretty hard. So we're going to change tactics now. We're going to finish this up using under pressure method. So it gives a rush, but this is getting a lot better already. So that means that both calipers are pushed out. So there's no more space in there for the fluid to go as far as moving the pistons. Okay, we are going to pump it up. Going to pump you up.
Pump you up.
And we're gonna get a good amount of pressure going. And then pop. And a bunch of stuff will come out like air. And you pump it back up again. Boom, like that. That rush of that fluid coming through under pressure just takes all the air right with it. What I'm doing is I'm feathering the handle, like just half strokes. Okay, now we're on the right side. It's getting really good and hard now because we've got that left side pretty much done. See what we get out of this one. Obviously there's air up here, so don't let that fool you. Okay, that's pretty much it. I have a good lever. So that bled up a lot easier than I did it originally. So what I'm talking about when I say flick the lever is, and the reason why it ain't squirting out is because I got that piece in that keeps that from doing that. Otherwise it'll be squirting up going everywhere. That's what that's there for. Okay, flip the lever or flick it is just this. A lot of times there's a little bit of air stuck in here, right up in here. The fluid's going by it. And then when you do this, it kind of jars it and gets it up, and you'll see it come out inside the master cylinder. But we got a pretty good hard lever here. I mean, it's not going to be as hard as it would be if, you know, it was taking Viagra or something. But no, seriously, until we get these pads to bed in on these rotors, then it's not really going to be as hard as it's going to be, but that is really pretty freaking solid right there. So again, a few more of these, see if we can catch any of it doing it. I don't know if we will. This, you might, I may have already got it out. Sometimes when you flick it, you'll get a little air bubble coming out. But I think we got it all. Okay, before you put these guys on, you know, the little caps that go over the nipples, I could go somewhere with that one, is take and hold the pressure on it for about 10 seconds. And what you want to do is make sure that there's no fluid bypassing the nipple. That's going to tell you whether or not you got a good clean on the bottom of that, bore there, that part where there's a lot of corrosion. So if it starts dripping out, that's residual. Then you know that you've got to either tighten it more or take it out, let some fluid run, and maybe it'll take some of the gunk out. And that side looks good. This left side, let me go look on the right side. I'm going to hold some more pressure now. I'm going to look again. Wiped it all off. That one looks pretty good too. Just make sure everything's tight. Torque up your mounting bolts. Put your little pasties on. Your nipple covers, your pasties. That's the word I was looking for before. And you're done. Last operation is cleanup, and this is what I was talking about before. I just douched the crap out of it with this glass cleaner, this foaming glass cleaner, and just wipe off what you can. Let some of it run off. I can clean the rest of this crap up because we got to get on some tire work now. Well, I got the rear wheel off. You can tell it's the rear wheel because of the way it is. I got the core out, the valve core obviously. Well, you don't know that, but I did. We're going to replace the valve anyway if I have one. See if we can break this bead to see how much 24 or 25 years of, I don't know. The date on the tires is 2000, 2001 or something, so here we go. Ah! Almost. Yeah. Oh, baby. You're not being nice to Daddy. Oh, that thing about leverage. I have done tires this old before, but you know, not often. This is a Nomar tire changer, by the way, and no matter what the company tells you, or you see it shows where they slip tires off and on with this thing.
To demount the tire, I'll simply pull it around.
They're lying.
Now, how easy is that, guys?
There ain't no tire that easy unless it's been on and off 100 times at a show. I'm not saying that because I don't like them. In fact, the guy that owns the company is a really cool guy. I met him at Barber in 2018, Barber Motorsports Museum, for the annual vintage thing that they do. And he was in the vendor area. Me and him were cutting it up really good. So he was a really neat guy. He is a really neat guy. Busting ass is almost certainty. The dumb thing is I got a guy right down the road with a pneumatic tire changer and a balancer too, but he's busy all the time. I don't want to bug him. All right, let me get set up to try to peel this thing off. What you do is I use these Bead Pros. These are great tools to get an edge, and then I can get the this guy underneath it, maybe get it in between here. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do on these old tires, that's for damn sure. Sometimes it's easier just to try to pop it with the tools itself. Now, this probably just going to come off by hand. But you get this in like this, and twist it, and then just go around like this. Yeah, it's going to come off anyway by hand pretty much, because the tire's so damn stiff. It's the bottom one that sometimes that works best on. Okay, I got it in. Now you turn it sideways so it locks that edge in, because it's a flat, like a plus sign up there. And then we just start peeling the bitch off. Ugh. That's it. Leverage. It's what's for dinner. Get out of here. I do have a valve core for it, or valve rather, valve stem We'll just cut this bitch right off. Good. Done. That hole looks pretty good. And we take a little bit of this bead breaker stuff. You don't need to use this. You could use pretty much anything. Just lube it up so you can pull it through. Now the best way to do this is you got to use a piece of wood or something to make up the space because it's too big. You said wood and big in the same sentence. There it goes. There's a new valve core, I keep calling it a core, valve stem installed. It's highly unlikely it's gonna leak, maybe. I gotta clean up this rim now off camera, so I'll be right back. How I do this is just with a drill and a wire brush. Go around, clean that crap off, corrosion, bottom and top. I loosened up the clamps on these buttons, rotated it so I get at the ones that were right behind the buttons because they're impossible to get at otherwise. Then a little bit of Scotch-Brite, wipe it off with some brake clean. She'll be just fine. This rim is in great shape as far as the bead surface goes. I mean, ain't haven't had a new tire on it for 25 years, so the only person to muck it up would be yours truly. All right, for you fellers that don't know, which I'm sure you do, tires on motorcycles are directional. So the arrow's pointing that way. That means it's got to go on in the manner in the position you see right now, because this is the left side. So the left side's going to go up. That means it would be spinning that way, or in this case, this way. So we put the arrow that way. The yellow dot goes to the valve stem. Sometimes I got to clock these 90 degrees to get them to balance in. The concourse tires are notorious for that because there ain't no dots on the Michelin PR4 GTs at least. So I just did the rear on that one. I got to do the front too. You ought to see that front after going up to the mountains. The whole right side of the tire and part of the left on the sidewall is like, well, not the sidewall, but the side of the tread like this on that tire is gone. It's all freaking bald. So there you go. Hitting some corners. Usually you can push these on the first bead, sometimes not. There we go. Easy as pie. Now comes the freaking hard part in the helicopter. Okay, so the way this is supposed to work on a Nomar, you should be able to take this end, get it between the rim and the tire, and then bring it around, and it'll pop in. You use this yellow thing that I do use on some tires, but it ain't gonna work on this one, I don't think. So I got a strap over here to hold this down underneath the bead. Yeah, I hear the tire giving, so nope. All right, I got it, but I had to use these gull wing bars. These are the ones that for gull wings because the tires are so damn tight on them. Just with the yellow thing, no strap. Just hold that place in, just work my way around with these guys. These come with the set. So there you go. Now my yellow dot's really close. I should be able to move that over. The way it is, sometimes it doesn't. I had minimal stretching sound. That's bad sound that you don't want to hear from a tire. Yep. Blowjob time. All right, valve stems or the cores back in. 42. Wow, that was good. My hand hurts. Ow. That's what happens when you don't have cruise control on a motorcycle and you ride at a total of about 2,000 miles over a period of a week. It hurts. I'll just use my middle finger. It never gets used for anything else. Nice. All right, me likey. Oh, my back shot. All right, folks, I'm out of time for today, but this is back on. The axle's not torqued up yet, and I got to put the brake caliper back on, but I need to put the new pads, the friction material, on this rear caliper. So I'm going to do that tomorrow because I don't have time now, off camera. We're going to get the front one done off camera, but here's the interesting thing. These clip-on or snap-on weights right there that were on there are in the exact same position that they were before with this tire as they were with the old tire. I balanced this like I always do on my Black Widow balancer over here, and I lubed up my bearings. They were getting a little bit notchy, so I cleaned them up. And this thing's covered all the time. I don't know how, but anyway, this is the same balancer I use on the concourse tires, on everything. That doesn't go slow, okay? So, and it doesn't have no vibration from tires being out of balance. This works good for my purposes. And when I went to balance it, I snapped them weights off with just a little screwdriver deal, and it went heavy exactly opposite where those weights go. And I went, you gotta be kidding me. So I snapped the weights back on exactly where they were, and the tire balanced perfectly. So you gotta be shitting me. So, hey, who cares? As long as I don't have to mess with it. But yeah, so far so good. A little bit of difficulty getting that tire on, but sometimes that's the way it is. I got the Nomar stuck over there. Oh, by the way, what I did also was I put new wheel bearing seal in this right side. There's only one real seal because of the final drive on the other side. But there is an O-ring that goes on top of that spline. The old one's right here, I believe. Yeah, here's the old one. So I changed that out. It's a kit I got from Taz at azv65.com. So that's new. The O-ring's new. And I have a complete front wheel seal kit for it as well, which I'll do tomorrow. Like I said, all that off camera. So once we get that all done, hell, we'll be ready for road testing. Take it for a ride. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and take off and take a ride on the Sabre. But we're going to take a little bit of a longer ride. We're going to start around the neighborhood first, kind of wear these brand new tires in, and then maybe venture off a little bit further. I do not know how well this GoPro is going to react because the mount I have is the sturdiest that I have. And it's just the way it is. If it vibrates, I'll do the best I can, but no guarantees. Gotta check the brakes. This seat is very slippery with my gear. Extremely slippery. Like I want to fall off the thing. Yeah, you're real slippery on this seat. Got to do something about that. I just do not know how this thing going to handle for a longer distance here, but we'll find out. The main thing that I'm testing was how the transmission worked, and that's why I ended up putting up video 4, because I wanted to explain the mistakes I made on that output shaft cover, cross shaft, that's what it is, cross shaft cover. And so once the cross shaft cover was back on and it would go through gears, you know, when I was doing it on the stand, I felt a little bit more confident, but not that much confident until I got it out at first ride. I just took it up and down the road, again with those old shit tires on it, and I gave it a couple of wallops with the throttle open, wide open throttle pretty much. And I went through all 6 gears and downshifted back, and it didn't give me any problem at all. Now, I don't know if you can see it in this view, because that display is really hard to view. I have to take it apart and see if I can clean that plastic or glass, if you want to call it up. Everything now works on a display. The shift indicator works, fuel gauge works, everything works. I had to take that fuel gauge sender apart and really go through it, and in fact rewire that resistance wire around the thing. All right, let's take off a little bit further away. As far as how it runs, it pulls really nice. I'm just getting used to these ergos and the fact that I'm sliding all over the damn seat. It pulls really well. I mean, very light throttle, it just wants to go, there's no question about it. I'm just going to take it easy around these corners because this thing just feels a little slap happy on compared to my concourse. New tires and all. I do not know how accurate this speedometer is because I can't look at my cell phone right now, even though I'm recording the audio on it. I'm hoping it's still recording. Normally I would just pull up like the Waze app and see what the GPS indicated speed is, and then compare it to the indicated speed on the speedometer. I mean, it runs real well. This thing really, I can tell she wants to go. We're gonna go right here. Since they opened this 4-lane up, this traffic here has become just absolutely horrible. I can't go too fast here because they monitor it pretty heavily with police since it's been, or the sheriff's office since it's been opened up. I can tell the suspension is mediocre at best right now. The rear shock is working, but the front forks I'm not too sure about. They feel real spongy, real soft. I don't even know if there's any oil left in them. There's no indication that they're leaking, but who the hell knows? This thing been sitting for I don't know how many years. Could have been sitting 20 years for all I know. There is an old there was rather an old registration on the bike, you know, Florida registration, and that was last registered 2012. It expires rather in 2012. So let's assume that this person who owned this was riding it into 2012. Well, that would give us 2012 to 2022 is 10 years, so 13 years. So at least 13 years has been sitting, I would say. We'll see if we can get it up to a State Road 64 up here and find a spot and just kind of give it a little whoop ass and see what happens. Temperature looks good on the gauge. I did put a new radiator cap on it, and I did put a new thermostat in this. I didn't order an OEM fan switch, and I think the fan switch is problematic. So I looked on a forum and found a Napa parts number that just is a screw-in replacement. It's supposed to be around 190, I think, for temperature. And I did test it on the lift, and it is absolutely turning the fan on. It kind of leaves it on, but I think the range of that particular switch, it wants to get lower before it shuts the fan off, which is okay by me at this point. What we'll do is we'll go on 64, and we will go out to Lakewood Ranch Boulevard, and then we'll cut back in on Lakewood Ranch, and usually the loop would take me out to State Road 70, come back in to go back to the house, but we'll go down the 4-lane that's been extended out there to where it penetrates out onto on that 4-lane on Lakewood Ranch Boulevard. And that should be good enough to at least get an idea what's going on with this, if anything, and see how fun it is. So far, except for a slippery seat, I'm having a good time. She sure definitely wants to pick out a little bit. I guess it's these new tires. Anyway, here we go. Whoa! Coming off the seat. Oh, wow. Holy cow. Dang. That is good. The sheriff's office SUV right in front of this Elantra. So that's going to put a little damper on our fun. Okay, as far as the brakes go, now that it's got the right calipers up front and new pads, they are braking in. At first they sucked, but they are getting a lot better right now. So I'm happy with them. I think they're only going to get better. The tachometer most definitely is not reading accurately. I do not know what is causing that, but I know it's idling around 1,000 and it shows 500, so I don't think you can see that. Maybe I can reposition the GoPro at some point. Try to do that now while we're going slow. Oh, well, that did it. All right, guys. Sorry about that. Well, I broke my phone mount trying to adjust it while I was riding because this all just hodgepodged chewing gum and baling wire together as far as my recording outfit goes. I just can't afford a really nice one right now, so the way it is. So I'm trying the best I can, so I had to re-glue that. All right, anyway, we're gonna do the loop the other way this time. We'll just go backwards and then come back down that state road the other direction. So I'm noticing one problem with the way it shifts. I don't think it has anything to do with transmission. It's really hard to get it into neutral, like the clutch plates are dragging a little bit. And I know I've got really good action on the clutch master and thus the slave. This is something that's really common on these old bikes. This is probably the original clutch pack. What happens is that friction material actually starts to break up and gets little pieces breaking off and goes between the friction material and the clutch plate. And you can feel them when you take the clutch plates out. You can feel the friction material like little pieces of it between your fingers. I got to get around this stinking freaking, what is it, a concrete truck. Tell you what, the traffic on this road has just gotten exponentially terrible since they punched this out. This was a county project dating back to starting in the 90s, and it's just getting finished now. So anyway, as I was saying, the clutch plates, they end up binding up, especially when they get hot. And I had the same exact situation happen with the Magna. When I first got that going, it was very difficult to get into neutral, and when you put it in first gear, even when it's idling properly, when it's hot in particular, it really clunks, jumps. So I don't believe this is transmission at all. Let me get over in the other lane. This is clutch. And when I first took it out for a test ride, and I got on it a little bit in the neighborhood, I noticed that it seemed to want to slip a little bit. Like, I thought it might be the tire slipping, but then I realized it was probably the clutch. So this clutch will need to be replaced, and I kind of figured that. So we'll get that ordered here in the near future. So we'll get to that when we get to it. And as a result, it shifts a little clunky, but these V4s, they shift clunky anyway. Pretty much any bike in the 80s shifts clunky compared to modern day bikes. They just do. It ain't jumping out of gear. If this was a transmission issue, it would be leaping out of gear, which these V4s had problems with, especially the early ones. So basically what we got to do here is just change the clutch pack. Let's see if we can make this light here, because this light is a stinking long ass light. I hope this video is coming out okay as far as the quality of it goes. I'm going to edit a significant amount out of it, obviously. I'll try to keep in what I think is relevant. This lens is more dirty than my OnlyFans page. Now the cooling fan's running, and it was running when I brought it back home after I broke my camera, and it doesn't seem to want to shut off. So I think this is going to be a no bueno on this fan switch. I have a little bit of a feel like at certain speeds, like I have a tire that's out of balance, but I know the tires are not out of balance because I balance them the same way I do. You saw that in this video, that I do all my tires. At certain speeds. So I'm not really sure about that, but we may have to revisit one or more of these tires. I don't know what's going on. So far, I'm really, really enjoying this bike, even in its kind of rudimentary state, without getting the suspension done where it needs to be. Remember that back in the 80s, they relied a lot on air pressure. This thing nosedives like you wouldn't believe when you hit the front brakes, because there is no pressure in the front forks that I know of. Try putting it in neutral and see what it does. Yeah, see, it's really hard to get into neutral. It's easier going down to get into neutral than up. Classic clutch dragging. So I'll put it in, I've got the clutch in now, I'll let it settle out, and we'll put it in first gear. See how it jumps like that? It really shouldn't jump that much. So our clutch is dragging a little bit. I mentioned the front brakes. I'll talk about the rear brakes. They work. I have to adjust the lever a little bit more up. It's just with this particular ergos. Yeah, when I come out of the friction zone, at the very end of that friction zone, it goes and it grabs. So that's definitely clutch plates. I am trying to get to a spot where we can actually give this at least a little tickle. I'm gonna go right here. Whoa! Wants to pull you right off the seat. I mean, I'm sliding off the seat. It's hard to hold on. Wow. Holy moly. Ha ha. Oh, I can't even hold on. I did wipe the seat down with some glass cleaner, but it's just my gear is like that textile gear in my pants. And it doesn't happen on my concourse, but I'm sliding all over the seat, so I can't even hold on to the seat. Wow. Man, this is going to be such a blast to dial in suspension-wise, make sure that I don't have a rim bent or tire out of balance or something, and then kind of just, like I said, dial it in. Oh, this is going to be so much fun, because now I'm getting real comfortable with this thing in corners, and I can tell right now that this thing is going to be really fun. Maybe trailer it up into the mountains next spring when we go up there, and bring the concourse and this thing, and run, if it's not cold, and run this thing around up there. I think I would really have a lot of fun with it. So we'll just go ahead and end the video now. You know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Maybe I'll get more stuff up, maybe not. Might take a while, I don't know. But boy, am I happy with this thing. Wow, this thing is just fantastic. So we'll see you next time, maybe. Catch you later.